I have been a fan forever. And I've watched you, like most people, grow up into this beautiful woman. And there is this fascination with who you are and what are you doing. So I believe, according to our research, you got in the business per se, or at least became known to us about 85. You were 6 years old. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I started working professionally when I was 4. Um, and so yeah, that's about right. 4,
So I
6.
think it said Sesame Street. So I think what was the first big role that you can remember you had? Was it Sesame Street?
I did a lot of commercials in those days, Sesame Street, and then shortly after that, I got to be on Broadway in Fences, the Broadway production of Fences. I was the
Wow.
understudy for a while,
Wow.
and then I took over the part. Karima Miller, who preceded me, we're just kids, so she got taller and grew up. She had done it at the Yale Repertory Theater and then did it on Broadway. But yeah, I got to be even the understudy years. Like I was, working with James Earl Jones and August Wilson and Lloyd Richards and Courtney B. Vance, Mary Alice. It's just the cast was amazing. And then when I was on stage, um, Billy D. Williams, Lynn Thigpen, Ray Arana, just an amazing, just that's where I got my education, kind of like an apprentice to the people I was working with.
Imagine, no one can. Very few of you can. You're in a class of your own, being a child working with legends, and whether you understood it or not, you knew there was some regality there. They were regal, they were special, they were set apart, and you were in this place. How quick did you grow up? I have a 18-year-old niece, and I guarantee that at 6 years old, you had saw more than she'd ever known.
I In some ways, I grew up a lot, and in other ways, I remained very naive for a long time. There's, when you work that much as a kid, there are a lot of sort of regular kid interactions that I didn't quite. I was always kind of a late bloomer with that. But in terms of, it's not just being around. I didn't know, you know, um I didn't know the history of these people necessarily. I was too young to really understand their gravitas in that way. But what I did know is that they went on stage and made magic every night.
Mhm.
And I Raynell, the character I played, shows up at the end of the show, and I would sit through all the rehearsals and watch, and I would watch in one of the balconies with my mom. I would watch the whole show until, the act break, and then go back and get ready for that last scene. And they just had the audience eating out of the palm of their hands, like the emotions of the theater would just sway back and forth, up and down, and the actors were completely in control of that. And um that kind of magic, seeing what we had done in the rehearsals, how things had gone wrong and how there was experimentation, and then seeing what they did, that's what made them, you know kind of larger than life and stars in my eyes, because they were magic makers, and then once I got older, then I look back and I was like, oh, it's probably a good thing that I didn't know that I didn't have an awareness of that. you
Because you
know
probably couldn't have been able to do it. The naivete of not knowing who you were around definitely suited you in your career, but a lot of what you do, a lot of what we all do is emotional intelligence, and that's what I was referring to. Your
Mhm.
emotional IQ had to be stupendous at such a very young age to be around those legends, and to be able to interact. I think it's something we take for granted. But I
Mm.
ever I wonder, how did that affect you, or how do you see it affecting you for better or for worse as an adult?
Um, that's interesting. I don't I don't like like I said, therapy, no. I don't know. I don't know if I could really pin it down and give you an intelligent answer. I know that, I swim in my own stuff like everybody does, and oftentimes, I had these wonderful experiences in my youth, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm you have to basically
I'm just always fascinated by those.
yeah, my parents, they are immigrants. I'm the first generation born here, and they saw, I think, in me, I had a gift. Luck came into play, and they went with it. But they weren't I still very much, like, remained their daughter and the oldest of 3 girls, and, I was a child. I was a precocious child and really curious, but, my parents are from the Caribbean. I also had to be really respectful and learn, and so that responsibility part of it, I don't it I know this seems lame because I haven't lived, another childhood, but they were still growing me up. Like, my parents didn't stop raising me. I wasn't, like,
Mhm.
thrown into this environment
You had
and
a very it sounds like a normal home life, right? You felt like when
yeah, very
you came home. Yeah, you weren't
very much,
in
and I had
control of your family.
yeah, and in
Mm,
even, working with the people I worked with, was I interacting with them? Some, I remember them teaching, different people backstage teaching me how to play, like, chess and different games and stuff like that, but I wasn't really interacting with them the way they were interacting with each other. I was still a kid, and, I
mhm,
called Lloyd Richards
mhm,
Mr. Richards, and, um I was in school, and
mhm,
my mom was always right there, or my dad, or one of my aunts. I was
mhm,
always,
mhm.
um,
That's interesting.
supervised.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's interesting because even in the world that I'm very familiar with in sports, I watch when these kids are set apart at a very young age, they then become the adults in a lot of ways. Like when I worked in tennis, you know, kids who were 15 and 16 years old paid the bills. And so the roles reversed. There was no
Yes.
parenting. There's this partnership that was interesting to me. So it sounds like that's what your family still gave you. So then you get this
Yeah, my
big
parents didn't play
show,
that. There was
this
no partnership.
huge. Yeah, they were like, you don't get to
No. My
sit over
family and
here.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, and we lived the same way. Our life didn't change. And God bless them. My parents, were very, conscientious with my money, and it was like, "That's for college, and that's saved over there. But this is this life here." So that part of it didn't
Mhm, mhm.
have any effect on our family life,
I love it. I love it. I love it. If it can be done,
Could have been
you
more
can see that
fun.
it can be done. And by the say it again. Say it again.
Could have been more
You said
fun,
what?
Yeah, it could have been more fun,
Okay.
but
You know, but it does speak to who you are today, right? It speaks to how you if you did some comparing, and I'm not judging, but if you did, you'd be like, makes sense. Um, you get this huge role, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
mhm.
and I would think life would change. Tell me about when you knew you were America's darling, the most loved, you could date all the boys, they loved you, we all loved you, all the girls wanted to be you. What was that experience like?
Girl, I didn't know that.
You were Are you kidding me? You didn't realize that everybody wanted to take you to prom and dances and you were like you had no concept?
No, I was tutored on set, and, like, I definitely had friends, outside of work, but, um, I didn't I wasn't aware of that, and then, sometimes that kind of sexualization that happens with girls, like, I wasn't necessarily comfortable with it. So I didn't like
Mm.
read into that at all, uh, because it comes at you, especially, once you kind of blossom into your teenagehood, it comes at you in the material, in the very scripts and the episodes and the things that you're being offered and whatever. And it comes at you from a lot of different ways. And I don't think I was like, my antenna wasn't up for it. I think on purpose. I think I was like protecting myself from that. But it's one of those things where I look back and I was like, man, I wish I had known because like I said, I would have had more fun. Like I would have,
Listen,
more
listen,
like.
I wish somebody would have told me 10 years before. I would have had this. I'm right there with you. I'm like, you mean to tell me this could have been my life?
But, I think about that now, even, like going on vacation and I need to wear this one piece. And no, I'm going to wear it too. No, no, I can't because, and I have to think, I'm like, no, 10 years from now, 20 years from now,
Put it
you know,
on. Yeah,
God
get
bless.
sexy.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
look back and be like, what was she thinking? Why did she lean
Yeah.
into it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm leaning all the way in now, my friend. Thank you for that advice. That is a TED Talk brought to you from Tatyana Ali, guys. Lean into the sexuality. So I have to ask you, what was it like working with the now, as we know, superstar movie star Will Smith?
Amazing, amazing. We had
Mhm,
so much
mhm.
fun. I mean, yeah, well, people know now. I mean, we've shared that kind of camaraderie with everyone over the years, but um God, we laughed till we cried every single day, almost every single
Mm.
day on set. I mean, actual tears running down people's faces because we were playing, we were vibing off of one another. Will has always had this kind of he has this kind of like larger than life kind of like superhero energy, and
Mhm.
when he walks in the room, like he really makes people feel good, and um he's always had that. So it was it was fun and it was
People are
free.
drawn to him. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And rightfully so. It was very freeing. We ad-libbed all the time. We did things that sitcoms and that you're not always able to do or allowed to do. Um it was a really magical 6 years.
Do you think, and of course I'm asking you to be a psychologist, that that was the most magical time of his career? I would have to think, for even going on to be a movie star, you going on to live your life and do all the things that you have done. When you think about a show like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it is Americana. It is a part of the culture. It would be a Jeopardy question. You know what I
Mhm,
mean?
mhm.
W And when you're in it, you don't know, much like The Cosby Show, much like all these shows that have really changed generations and generations that could have lived and still do in some cases in perpetuity. Do you look back and think, "Wow, that probably was the most magical time of his career?"
I don't know. I mean, I can't say that. I can say that it was magic. I mean, it was pure magic.
Mhm.
There's something that, and even though you don't know the posterity of things, how they're going to live on, and that's nobody's business. Like, who knows that? But you can feel when something's really special. And I think we all felt that. There was something about, from the cameramen to the boom operators to
Mhm.
our directors, there was just this, and the cast, this gelling that we were able to do. It was not forced. It just happened, Um, the the frequencies, the vibes, the energy, whatever, like it all kind of aligned in that moment.
I remember thinking, watching that how happy it made me, how everyone felt so happy. We don't have TV like that anymore. Like, if I believe it or not, I talked to Jodie Sweetin before the push down with the cops during Roe versus Wade, and I was saying, like, Full House. TGIF, tune it, the songs. I mean, where's our theme songs? You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both. I'm aging myself, right? But where are they? And we don't have that. Like that to me is something that is missing
Mm,
dearly. It took
mhm,
away our innocence. Your
mm.
thoughts?
I think that's true. I think we don't have that, and I don't know, I don't know exactly why that is, but there is something as a Trinidadian, there's something about people coming together and singing songs, and kind of like this sort of national or even international awareness of the same stories that unifies us, that kind of links us. We can, like you sang that song, and that brought me to places, of my childhood. I
Yeah.
thought of like
Yeah.
Janet and Fields and
You're like,
everybody.
"Oh, I
Yes,
remember." Yeah. Yeah,
the
yeah.
roller skates.
Yes!
I don't,
Pigtails.
I yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that is. I don't know why it's um, but there's yeah. I don't know. I don't know,
Uh,
but I miss
I
it
get
too.
it. I look, I asked this question to people all the time, and I'm like, I do believe we're missing something. I really truly do. Just from that generation, that era, it really brought a lot culturally, but even collectively as a whole. It was beautiful for us as a society. But also everyone feels that way. Like somebody right now is like, I remember Leave It to Beaver was when, like so I
That's
mean I
true.
can
That's
right.
true.
Someone's saying that right now about a show that I know, I mean, Leave It to Beaver way before our time. But you mentioned being Trinidadian. I'm very curious about this, Caribbean. Talk to me about something I wouldn't know because 'cause I'm not Caribbean. Like, what is the and I only ask you because I have very many people from the Caribbean in my life. Like, my makeup
Mhm.
artist who's here now, she's standing at me like, "Say what you saying. What you about to say about the Caribbean?"
You're giggling.
You hear the background? She's like, "I dare you. What you about to say? Because you gonna get it." And we're like so clearly one of the things with Caribbeans, you guys speak your mind. You're not afraid to have opinions. Got it.
This is true.
But but what else is there that I would not know? Specifically being from Trinidad.
Um, what else is there that you would not
Like,
know?
what is something only your mother would do or only your mom and dad do that and if you're from Trinidad, you're like, "Oh, yeah, no, you must be Trinidadian."
Um, well, my mother's is from Panama, but
Okay.
her family, the lineage is from the Caribbean to Panama to work on the canal, Barbados, and
Okay.
St. Vincent. And
Okay.
what is some? I don't, I tell you what's your makeup artist name?
Tony, she's sitting here in the corner. She's
Tony-
from Jamaica, right? Uh-huh.
Okay, you tell me if this, but I feel like a lot of us have like gardens. Is that true?
Gardens?
Yeah.
You have gardens? She's growing basil, but yeah,
Yeah.
in her garden. Yeah. So do you have a garden?
Yes, I grew up with
Are
a
you s
garden. Like we grow a lot of our own food, even and it
Oh,
doesn't matter if you're in the city, if you have an apartment, if you whatever the
interesting.
situation is, like it's just something I grew up with, and I know I have to pass on to my kids that like food comes from the ground. Not just ground food,
Wow.
but that food comes from the ground, and I want them to be in it and to know it and to, they're toddlers, so
That's
they
fascinating.
don't always eat it. But that's one that's kind of simple, but
That
it's
is
it's actually
fascinating.
kind
That
of
is actually
profound,
very
I think.
fascinating. Yeah. You're like, okay, so
Uh,
what do you have in your garden right now?
right now I have a pepper plant, I have chard, I have lots of herbs. I have
It's fascinating.
my babies like sweet potatoes, and so they kind of sprouted because I didn't use them too right away. So that's gone in the ground, but it's a beautiful plant. I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. But yeah, that's something that they're pictures of me as a kid with like giant zucchinis that came from our backyard, and like that's
Interesting.
really, you know. I don't know. I have to have plants in my house. I have,
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's
Tony
something
does
that
too.
I've noticed.
Tony does too. Tony
Yeah,
always got the plants in her house. She giving me plant advice every 5 seconds, where to go about my
yeah.
plants. I'm like, "Okay, Doctor Plant. Yeah, okay." No, I
That's
get it.
one kind of small thing, but,
But
given
no, but
the way things are now,
it's home.
it's
Wait, say
home.
that again, I'm sorry.
No,
Say
I
that
mean,
again?
given where we are now and how people are moving towards, sustaining ourselves and eating healthy, and
Oh, yeah.
that's something that, it's amazing how much we actually do.
I you mentioned your kids, and I, again, stalking you on the gram. And
Just
you were very, very vocal. I know about Black maternal health and taking care of Black mothers. And
mhm,
you shared a story that was pretty shocking to me because I'm under the impression if you're recognizable, they won't be so bold. But time and time again, I hear that. Serena Williams shared her story. My friend Allison Felix shared her story. These are
mhm,
world class athletes who have
mhm,
access and means, who talked
mhm,
about how they had to demand their rights as they were giving birth.
mhm.
Tell us your story if you don't mind.
Um, so I had a very, very healthy pregnancy, like almost a boring pregnancy in that sense. Um, and, I was seeing sort of a traditional OBGYN, who wasn't in attendance at my actual birth, which happens a lot. That continuity of
Okay.
care is often missing. And, but literally the moment we walked into the hospital, everything, all the health and all the well-being just went out the
Mm,
window. And our birth plan was not followed. I was coerced. Coercion, what does that mean? In this context, it often means when you're in the throes of labor, being asked again and again and again and again and again and again if you want, interventions that you don't need and that aren't in your birth plan. So for me, that was the epidural. I was asked a million times if I wanted to have an epidural until finally I relented, and because
mm,
they make it sound like this is what you need and this is what um and it was just my birth room became an absolute circus. Um
mm.
I um Actually, a woman in Texas recently sued for this. I didn't even think that I could do that. I was going through so much of my own stuff, but they actually pushed him back inside me. He was crowned for many hours. And
Why
we
did they do that?
that's a good question.
Are
Um
you
there was
Oh
a
my
doctor who put his forearm on top of me and stood up onto my bed and was like squeezing down on my stomach almost like I was a bottle of toothpaste. And um I ended up having an emergency C-section. And my son ended up being in the NICU, a perfectly healthy baby ended up being in the NICU for 4 days. And uh, the head doctors at the NICU, said that his complications were a result of the traumatic nature of his birth. Um, so I went through a year or two, so did my husband, of just being, I mean, if I remember when we got home, we were just, the trauma that we had experienced, we didn't even know what to do with it. I didn't know at that time. I didn't know about reproductive justice. I didn't know that we were dying. I didn't know about the incredible mortality rates in this country, the incredibly high rates of C-section in this country. I didn't know all of those things, and I thought I didn't even cry. I thought I didn't know what had happened, and I didn't even know it was bad. I knew nothing. It was just survival. And when we left that hospital, we left in the middle of the night. It was the middle of the night because I was like, we
mm.
have to get out of here. they're never going to let us leave, and they're going to keep doing things to us, and we have to leave. And my husband, he's a
Wow.
professor, and I don't know what that language, he's an English professor, and he spoke, it was English, but all my words were four letters, and he said something that sounded like gobbledygook and somehow got us out of there. um, and it was over time, working with a nursing consultant who asked, well, what happened to the, and when I saw the look on her face, I realized, oh my God, this was really bad. It and even still, a year or so later, or no, 2 and 3 years later, I was invited by Black Mamas Matter Alliance to talk about my nursing experience, because I had been open about that on my Instagram. Um, and while I was there, I was in a room of, Black midwives and doulas and 300 or so, really people at the forefront of this movement. And I realized I was 2 months pregnant, and
Mm.
I was terrified. I didn't know what I was going to do, because I didn't want to go to the hospital. I didn't want that again. And I realized I was in the room with the people who had the answers. And then that's when my education began. And that's when my healing began. And that's when I started to talk about it. And then I wrote an op-ed that I gave to Essence and asked them to put out, um, because what we don't know in this case can kill us. How also though, the answers are out there. Like, there are people doing this work. There are ways.
But
There are ways to receive respectful care.
yeah,
There are ways, and there are
yeah.
people, and so it's changed my whole life. Like, I went from being completely traumatized to um really becoming radicalized, and almost finding my tribe in this movement. And um I've always had a political social justice kind of bent to me, and this just ripped tore the bars off the cage for me personally, because it's really where so much of the isms collide. When you think
Mhm.
about oppression, when you think about what it means to oppress a group of people, and what what the methodology is in that, um, what could, you know, birth, how a child comes into this world, the
Mm.
connection with the mother and the
Wow.
father, or the birthing person, or I should say, and the birthing people. It's been going on for a very long time. I mean, this
Mhm,
is
mhm, mhm.
these are methods and ways of treating us that have existed during slavery, and have kind of morphed, and much like the criminal
Jesus.
justice system, they've kind of morphed and taken on different names and forms over time. Um, but yeah, that's what this is. And they almost killed me and my baby. And I don't want anybody to experience what I experienced, or at worst, lose more mothers.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Allison
And
said
let
the
me
same thing. She thought she was gonna die.
Yeah. And I'm gonna and I'll say something about this that's really important for people to understand. It's Indigenous women also have very similar, Indigenous birthing people have very similar rates and experiences as well. When you are in your hospital, when you're in that gown, none of this.
Matters.
You a black woman you're just a black woman going through labor. They don't.
I don't care who you are, you're just another black
What?
woman in
Who are
labor.
you? But who are you? And to
Who
be
are you? I
honest,
don't care.
who should I be? Who do I
You
need
should
to
be
be?
yeah, you don't
I
need to
don't.
be
I shouldn't need.
anybody. You're right.
I shouldn't need to be anybody.
To get fair
To
treatment.
Exactly,
Mhm,
exactly,
mhm,
exactly.
mhm.
But that's the way things are, and not in just in this country, but very much so in this country where it's like, "Oh, well, I can buy
Well, yeah.
better treatment," or "I can buy my freedom. I can buy equality." Nah, nah, sir. That's a West Indian nah, sir. No, you can't.
Doesn't work.
No,
NASA.
it doesn't. Not at the most important pivotal moments in our lives, junctures in our
Mm.
lives. When my teenage sons decide when they're teenagers and they wanna hang out with their friend. It's not that's not you don't buy it. That's not those you can't buy it then.
You said this is where all the isms collide during childbirth for Black women. All the isms collide there, and that is real. So you take this traumatizing, as you said, you go from traumatized to radicalized. But I think it's important to mention that you didn't want to say anything because you thought it was normal. And I feel like this is why we're just now becoming more aware of it,
Yeah.
because either we don't know because we don't know, or maybe we think because they have a title that calls them a doctor. Um, Usually it takes someone that is a leader in their own right to say this, to feel this, to be like, "No, that don't feel right." I know my Caribbeans feel me because, again, I said y'all have opinions. So I think you would say something. I would say something. Serena would say something. Um, Allison said she didn't say anything. She was like, "This doesn't feel right." And she is someone who would say something. She's like, "What's something's off." So imagine being in the most vulnerable space in your entire life, giving birth, and you feel like something's wrong, but they're telling you everything is right. It makes you think you're crazy.
You also have to I think about that, and there were things leading up, there were I had red flags in my care throughout my pregnancy, things I didn't like, things that were said that I was like, "What?" Or things that I'm saying that are not being taken seriously or being laughed off. I had those.
Mm,
But when I think about it, you know what? That's how I walk in this world. People are always doing shit that I don't like. Treating me a certain way, saying things this way, saying things that way. And what do? I do what I do and I move right through them. I'm like, okay, I put that where it needs to go and I'm moving on. But the thing is that, in birth, it's something different. You really have to be precious. You cannot let those things go. You really have to be precious about your care. And to be on, I mean precious. That little feeling, that little thing, especially in your motherhood journey. That is the thing
mm,
that gets lit up like crazy because you need to take care of these children. So it's lit up and you need to listen. All those little things that we usually can slough off and let me get through my job. Let me finish this day. I'm going to get my promotion. I don't care about what these people are saying. I know how they feel. No, that's not okay in this situation. We have to be precious with ourselves.
you're talking about accountability. You're talking about accountability right now. We have to be held accountable for our behavior too, right? We
I
can't just
mean,
ignore it.
well,
I'm not
yes.
putting blame on us, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, pay attention to it. You know what I
Pay
mean?
attention to it, and also but just try seek spaces that are safe, and I think, a lot of
Mm,
us might
yeah,
still think that, "Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if I trust a Black doctor or trust a midwife or trust a Black do I mean, I don't know how people
No,
I
you're
know
right. You're right. You're speaking real spit right now. That is true. We be on our I don't know about this Black doctor.
but check like you're saying, check all those things, be accountable to yourself, and
Mm,
but at the same time, we shouldn't have to be in a defensive posture. We should be able to get the care we deserve. Um,
mm,
but really seek
mhm.
those safe spaces, those safe I don't even get my reproductive care from anyone outside of the sort of reproductive justice space. I just don't. And I don't want anybody touching me but Black women and Black people, and that's just how I roll right now. I mean, that's
Amen.
I just
Amen.
and not
Amen.
just any
Amen.
and also not just anybody. You have to speak that language. I come in and I say birthing
Sure.
people,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
say reproductive and and I can see it in with a glint in your eyes. If that's annoying to you, goodbye. I you have to be up on what's happening.
Hmm. You just gave me a whole education right now. a true education. Like, I think and it's interesting to hear you talk about it because we don't talk about it enough. We do, but we don't. I'm hearing more
You
and
know
more because I'm aware, but I don't feel like it has the attention that it deserves.
you know what I found out when I wrote that op-ed and I started, I've been asked to speak in different spaces and stuff like that. I found out that there's a history of obstetric violence in my family. Aunts are telling me stories. My mom's telling me a story, and nobody thought to tell me their story.
Hmm.
But I think that's I think there's I don't think I'm the only one. I think that we have a culture of, those are private things, and they are private, okay? They are private.
Mhm.
But we are being hurt, and so there needs to be a creation of space where we can share our experiences and learn from each other's wisdom, learn from our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunties, the women, you know, the women that live next door to us. We don't share this information, and we all have it. Um, I just found that so and my family is so close. We talk about so much, but that is something that everybody keeps to
That's
themselves.
crazy. Heavy. And it explains so
Mhm,
much. I was having this conversation with somebody about what we learn as kids and how does that affect us as adults. And that is one of the
mhm,
things, like we keep secrets, and secrets have so much
mhm,
power. So if we don't start taking the power away from the secret, um, we can't help ourselves.
mhm.
This is a beautiful way to in other words find another passion outside of acting, because you are passionate and you are activated and radicalized. Are you working on any other projects as well outside of the realm of making sure we save our Black women, which is not a small task?
Yeah, I've been for the last, few years, I've been working on a film. um, it's in development right now with an amazing company, but, really kind of with the film really is for us to give us the remedy to kind of
Mm.
hash that out, and, so I'm working on that, um, and I'm writing a bit. I've written a screenplay, and, I'm really enjoying writing, and yeah, and I guess that's
And saving lives and being a mom and being a wife. I mean, yeah, it doesn't like you busy. You've got a lot going on. You don't need to go down a list. That's a lot in itself. I got 2 boys, got a husband, writing a script, working on it, saving Black women. I guess that's it. Nothing else. I mean, I'll just pick up something else in the meantime. We are crazy. We've done enough.
I know, I know,
We always like, what else can be done? Enough. We're done.
I know. But,
Oh
the
no,
mind
Tatyana
just
Ali, you really are a treasure, and it's beautiful and refreshing to see the woman you've become. But no no surprise there. You are highly educated. Not that that means much, but anybody can get in Harvard. It's not didn't happen every day. So no surprise on my end, but it's surprising to see that you've been able to be so grounded in a world that sometimes doesn't allow us to do that. So I appreciate all that you're doing for the culture. I really do.